Homage to the Triple Gem. So hello everybody, this is Bhante Joe here, and still here at Nikapitiya Aranya, and up to the same things, looking in the forest at potential place for the kuti, and just doing the regular things here at the monastery. And so I was listening to a Dhamma talk, actually from a teacher who I have a lot of respect for, and has been very helpful to me. And he brought up these 5 subjects for frequent recollection. And these are things that, as a monk, if you're in the Thai tradition, you chant them frequently. There's 5 subjects for frequent recollection, and there's also 10 subjects for frequent recollection. And not just in the Thai forest tradition, but I think in other forest traditions too. I've noticed these topics chanted here in Sri Lanka and in one of the forest traditions. These are things that monks are recommended to think about frequently. So in recent videos, I've been talking a lot about the importance of staying in the present moment and not thinking. Thinking little, not letting the mind go to the past, not letting the mind go to the future. And actually had a comment asking, where does the Buddha teach to stay in the present moment? And that kind of snowballed. And one of the reasons that the Buddha teaches us to be in the present moment is because thinking can so easily get hijacked by intentions, by thought worlds that we did not intend to create and we didn't intend to enter. You start thinking about a particular topic, and suddenly you're way off into the future, 20 years in the future, or back 20 years in the past, and you're off in these directions. Then there's no telling what's going to happen there. One is at the whim of whatever it is that the mind decides to conjure up, or that might be coming from somewhere else. And so it might start off as something very nice, very pleasant, and turn into something that's not pleasant. Thought about remorse, thought about anxiety. So for this reason, learning to stay in the present moment and just be in the present moment is a really basic and foundational skill in Buddhism. And it's one that requires really intense effort. But it's not the only skill. And this skill of learning to stay in the present moment fortifies the ability to think. And these topics for frequent recollection that should be thought about frequently are topics that one has to think about. And when one thinks about them, one doesn't want the mind to start thinking about that particular topic and then be way off into the future, go way back into the past, only to come back to that topic like very briefly from time to time. Because the intention that one had in thinking about that topic can get hijacked. And the effectiveness of thinking about that topic can get hijacked too. Actually, I was, I think, briefly listening to this kind of podcast a couple of weeks ago or something like that, and just kind of touched on that one. And it was a psychologist, which is Jordan Peterson. I can't remember why I was looking at that. But anyways, he was talking about kind of IQ tests and IQ measurements. And he said that, nobody's figured out a way, you can train people to take an IQ test, but nobody's figured out a way to make everybody smarter. Nobody's figured out a way to train to make people actually better at everything, smarter at everything. So actually, this ability to stay in the present moment is a type of skill that when one develops it can spread out into many other skills. I don't know if psychologists have actually tested the effects of learning to do this. I mean, it's not going to make somebody a genius. But what it can do is enhance the ability to think. And here the thinking that we're trying to cultivate is not thinking that's directed to try to find some outward truth, like how to solve some mathematical equation, how to make a better computer, how to, do a better marketing job or whatever it might be. It's a type of thinking that's directed inwards to try to find out what it is that we're doing to cause ourselves to suffer. So these 5 topics for frequent recollection. I'm subject to birth. I've not gone beyond birth. I'm subject to aging. I've not gone beyond aging. I'm subject to sickness. I've not gone beyond sickness. I'm subject to death. I've not gone beyond death. And all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. So, if one is a new Buddhist, these themes sound a little bit depressing. But if one has been a Buddhist for a while and has done some reading into the suttas, these themes are very familiar. And they're themes that need to be recollected frequently because they're easy to forget. one of the most powerful of those themes is that all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. And we kind of build our world and the values and the investments that we make into the world based on assumptions about the future that are really just not certain. We have these kind of assumptions about the way that things are going to be in a month or 2 months or 3 months or a year. And we have assumptions about the people who are going to be in our life, the things that are going to be in our life, and even the aspects of our character that are going to be present. But none of those things are stable, and the day will actually come when all of those things will be separated from us. There's not a single thing that we like, that we desire, that we cherish, that one day will not be separated from us. So the reason why it's good to have a mind imbued with calm, staying in the present moment to contemplate these things, is because these type of contemplations launch out directly towards the things that actually give life meaning. You kind of, all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from you. Well, that's why people live their life. I remember when I was a young man, my friend, he's now married to this lady. And we were young guys then, and he was dating this girl, and I can't remember what he was doing. I started teasing him about something. I think we were at a nightclub or something, and I said, I was kind of threatening him. I was like, if you talk to another girl, or you anything like this, I'm telling your girlfriend. Kind of kept saying these things to him, and he's like, "Yo, that's my life. That's my life right there." Like his girlfriend is his life. Anyways, he shouldn't be dancing with other girls or anything like that. Anyway, and he didn't. But that goes to show that these things that are beloved and pleasing to a person, they become the whole reason for which a person lives. And without those things, a person can't imagine a way to live beyond those things. I mean, it's the reason people get up in the morning. The reason they go to work is for what? For their kids or their husband, maybe for the love of their job. And this is the joie de vivre. They have the joy in life, the things that they conceive as happiness, the things that they can't perceive living without. So when we turn our mind to think about a topic like this, like everything that belongs to me will become otherwise, will become separated from me, it's good, it's important to have that recollection imbued with mindfulness, so that the mind doesn't start thinking about that and then, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I kind of fall into some depression, which doesn't necessarily happen right away. I mean, these are topics that when one thinks about them again and again, they become more of the basis through which one lives the world. And the mechanisms by which the mind creates perceptions are the same all around. And one starts thinking angry thoughts, gets used to thinking these thoughts about things that make one angry, it gets really easy to become angry. And if one takes up a perception-based meditation topic and thinks about it, contemplates it over and over again, learns to see it in everything, then when one brings that topic up again, those perceptions can come faster and faster, and they can penetrate deeper and deeper. Their scope can expand more and more. So we want to make sure, if one wants to make sure if they're contemplating in this way, that the expansion, that the scope of their thinking is in line with the Dhamma, and it doesn't jump over into something that's going to make one depressed. Actually, these topics for frequent recollection, birth is something people celebrate, but aging, sickness, death, everything that's mine is going to be separated from me. These are not things people celebrate. And they're not things people usually want to think of, because they're not usually seen as things that have a solution. So if they don't have a solution, you're thinking about something depressing, well, it's just going to make you depressed, and there's plenty that one can do to enjoy one's life right now without having to get depressed. In the Buddha's teachings, though, these things actually do have a solution. There's a solution to aging, there's a solution to sickness, there's a solution to death, there's a solution to the fact that everything that's mine, beloved, and pleasing will become separated from you, will become otherwise. And that solution, part of the way to find it is through the cultivation of these perceptions. So it would be depressing if there's no solution, but because there is a solution, what it means is that one basically wants to use this thinking faculty, this ability to plan, this ability to send the mind out into the future, to establish it in such a way that the solution can be found. Now, one of the reasons why one can't find the solution to aging, sickness, death, and the fact that one's going to be separated from everything is because one is attached to these things. One doesn't want to see the fact that basically the very same things that one attaches to, that one loves, that everything that one delights in, that these are the exact same things that cause a person to suffer. They turn around and stab one. So the Buddha has this sutta where he says, imagine that there was a murderer who came and befriended you, basically, and they acted like they were your friend, but they were actually plotting to kill you. And then at a certain point when everything was quiet, they might come and finish you off. And basically, paraphrasing here through this sutta, form is like that, feeling is like that, perception is like that, consciousness is like that. Was that person a friend the whole time when they were pretending to be a friend, or were they always a murderer in disguise? They were always a murderer in disguise, Lord. And said in the same way, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness are always like that. They're always murderous form, murderous consciousness, murderous feeling, murderous perceptions. So the solution to these things is to separate the mind from them, but one cannot usually conceive of happiness as outside of these things, which is another reason why it's really important to have this type of contemplation imbued with calm, because this is a type of calm that actually doesn't depend on a person's wife, their husband, their job, their kids. Doesn't depend on anything except for the ability to stay in the present moment, which is quite a lot of work, but can generate its own rewards. And these kind of rewards can give the mind a safe place to contemplate and also keep the contemplation in range. Because it's these things that are the things that are causing us to suffer, one requires to separate one's mind from them to find a peace that's beyond them. And this is something that's very, very frightening. And we kind of like to think of things as stable. We go through our life, when we make plans, when we make investments, and kind of the sky is blue. Well, maybe it won't always be blue. The sun shines, the rain falls. I mean, the sun may not always shine, the rain may not always fall. And it's kind of listening to a podcast about 3 months ago or so. It was about what would happen in a nuclear war situation. It was something like, I can't remember, it was like 150 minutes or something like that. 5 billion people die in a global nuclear war. And the planet would be kind of irrevocably changed. The atmosphere, well, maybe not irrevocably, but it would take maybe 1,000 years, a long time for it to regain some semblance of what it was like. And the atmosphere would be really changed. It would be, the ozone would be destroyed, so you couldn't live in some places because of the sunlight. The UV rays would be too harsh. The ground would be really poisoned. So in that case, the rain wouldn't fall in the way that people are used to, and the sun wouldn't shine in the way that people are used to. And these are background assumptions about the way that the world operates and the foundations that it's built on. The rain falls, the sun shines, the sky is blue. I'll get up tomorrow and go to work. I'll eat my favorite cereal, whatever it might be, and this is how it'll be for 5 years, 10 years. I'll retire, and that's how it is. But none of that is certain. So we contemplate these things to separate the mind from them for a couple different reasons. One is because it's a preparation. When the time comes when we're actually separated from these things, if we're blindsided, if it's like, well, I didn't know that was going to happen, not that one doesn't know it intellectually, but one has not prepared one's perceptions. So although one may have an intellectual knowledge that these things will change, one is living one's life as if they never will. And so what that means is one is addicted to them. And when they're pulled away, it's like a part of one gets pulled away. It's like one has to go cold turkey from something that one was leaning on so strongly. So we contemplate this to incline the mind away from the things that are going to turn on us, away from the things that will be separated from us. And we contemplate in this way also to build up this feeling of samvega. Wait a minute, anything that I attach to has this danger associated to it. So whereas before, when one hadn't cultivated these perceptions, one looked at the world and saw a safe place, an easeful place, a beautiful place. When one cultivates these perceptions, one sees danger in the world. One sees danger in the various things that one looks at. So the Buddha describes it this way: there's this kind of gratification, there's this danger, there's this escape. So when one turns one's mind towards the present moment, staying in the present moment over and over again, then what can happen is this kind of peace. One can develop this kind of peace inside. It's kind of it's kind of like here when it's very dark and the light is on now. If there's actually in Sri Lanka in these rural areas, there's not a lot of lights. So you imagine if you leave here and want to go to another place where there's light, you've got to walk through a lot of darkness to a place where there's a light. And if you don't have a flashlight, you can stumble, you can hit a lot of dangers on the way. But if you carry a light with you, then everywhere you go seems bright. Everywhere you go seems lit. I mean, it is because you have this light with you. But the light is not stable. It has to have battery power. So in a similar way, when one keeps one's mind focused on the present moment in this way, because there's peace inside of one's mind, the whole world can seem easeful. And the things that would normally bother one don't cause one that much trouble. The insults, the harsh words that one might hear, the ugly things that one might see, they don't seem as ugly. They might even seem beautiful because of the perception because of the state of mind that one has inside. So one develops a state of mind to have a state of safety, but ultimately one has to use that as a basis to learn to see danger in various things. It's kind of danger in the world, danger in whatever it is that will be separated from me, and kind of sees this danger as a spur. Because these are the things that make up a person's life. Everything that is beloved to a person is the reason that they're alive. It's also the reason that they suffer. It's also the reason that they get born. So if a person doesn't want to have birth, they don't want to have aging, they don't want to have sickness, they don't want to have death, they don't want to be separated from everything that they love, then they have to develop dispassion towards everything that they love, because everything that they love is actually what pulls them on. It's what makes life worth living and causes them to come back to be born again. So this is a path of development that, would probably not sell really well in self-help books. But it's the path of development that the Buddha laid out. Because in order to find a safety that lies beyond birth, aging, sickness, death, etc., one has to let go of the things that make up one's reason for living. The reason for living is the same as the reason for dying. And so if one wants to take a step beyond both life and death, then one has to develop beyond these things. So one shouldn't assume that the sky will always be blue, that the rain will always fall, that the sun will always shine, that one will always have a job, that the future will be way X, Y, and Z. A lot of it depends on external factors that are beyond a person's control. And it also depends on a body that's functioning that is inevitably going to wear away. All the futures that people assume have this aspect of them where the body is functioning. You don't imagine this future where all this great stuff's happening and you're blind, deaf, can't walk, can't talk, which could happen. So we contemplate these things to separate the mind from them, to find something better, to find something more safe. So the Buddha says that virtue imbues concentration, and then concentration imbues wisdom, and wisdom basically leads to release. There's a kind of chain that goes on. So these subjects for frequent recollection are things that are worth keeping in mind, worth contemplating frequently, but worth keeping mindfulness around. And kind of, if we cultivate this ability to stay in the present moment, then wherever we go can seem bright. But we don't want to use that light just to walk around and feel happy. We want to use that light to shine it in the crevices, to see what's really there, to find the dangers that have been causing us harm all this while, so that we can let them go. Because birth, aging, sickness, and death, they're things that can be depressing about if they had no solution, but they do have a solution. And the solution lies through dispassion, through letting them go completely and going beyond both birth and death, going beyond the things that give life meaning, because it's the things that give life meaning that cause us to die.